Hello, today is December 17th, 2019. This is the standard sig-cluster lifecycle call. It seems like we are low in attendance because I'm guessing a lot of people have checked out for the holidays already. But we will march on and record and post to the interwebs in your absence. We have a pretty sparse agenda. We'll see what we can get through. I don't see a lot of folks or representatives from various other sub-projects, so when we get around to the status updates, we'll have a sparse status update. I think the first update is I wanted to give a PSA to the group, and I would like to see if there's any folks on the call who are a downvote or a -1 to the notion of promoting a couple of folks in the community to do some of the extra work. As folks have known, Lucas has went back to school. But he did a lot of great work for the community. So on the pull request, I talked with Justin privately, but I wanted to let everyone else have their say too as well if they have opinions or thoughts about the idea of promoting Lubomir to help to be a SIG lead. Lubomir here has done a ton of work across the whole project, is from testing to component config to automation to kubeadm to you name it. Lubomir has pretty much been in the thick of it. I think he has definitely earned his stripes there. And with this fancy new community-based title, he gets even more work. So next up was Fabrizio. Fabrizio has been doing a lot of work helping to design a lot of the new features in sig-cluster lifecycle, and as well as integrate them across sub-projects. So I thought, given all his work across the many areas, as well as his mindfulness of how he approaches coming to solutions, that we wanted to help recognize that. Both of these folks have been active, thoroughly active for the last 1 to 2 years in the community. So if you have any questions, comments, complaints, concerns, if you don't feel comfortable talking openly, please feel free to ping me privately. And the issue is currently on hold. So I figure I'll give it a week timeout. And if you have any questions, comments, complaints, concerns, please let us know. Next up was Justin talking about KubeCon EU for 2020.
Yes, thank you. So as we are sparse, this might be a little trickier, but I have volunteered myself to sort of organize our representation at KubeCon EU next year, which is actually, I believe, early in April. I think it's April 2nd, so it's pretty early. It's in Amsterdam. We established a couple of minutes ago. And we traditionally do a SIG intro and deep dive. And then also, in addition, we do some, please correct me if I say anything incorrectly. In addition, we do sub-project updates for at least the bigger sub-projects. We typically don't get enough slots to do sub-project updates for all of them, or it's not necessarily the right time in the sub-project's life cycles to do them all. But I would like to, I'd like to understand who is going and who would be interested in giving the relevant talks. It is obviously some work to prepare, but then you are a speaker type thing. I'm planning on going. But I also think we should sort of spread the representation around as appropriate. So I don't know I guess the right way to do this, I'll put a call out on Slack, I guess, as well, given we are relatively light here. But I wanted to bring that up, and hopefully people can comment as well.
I'm going. I think that for the KubeAdmin deep dive, someone else, I did the last 2, and I don't have problem to do also this one, but considering that in Europe we have almost all the other contributors, I hoping that someone will take charge of the KubeAdmin deep dive. But if necessary, I can step in, or I can help also in some other sub-project if there are lack of contributor that they are not coming to Europe. So I'm here to help.
Wonderful. Thank you, Fabrizio.
I'm going as well. I have a talk submitted. I can do cluster API, but if someone else wants to step up and do that as well, I can happily give my spot, but I can sign up for now.
Yeah, I think what we might want to do too is talk with the sub-project owners if there's a lot of contributors to make sure that we give ample opportunity for folks to do the call. My only ask is that typically a SIG lead or SIG chair do the intro. SIG chair or somebody who's been around for a really long time do the intro. It's only because you present a face that they will see all the time, especially if they're new contributors, and then they'll feel accustomed to seeing your face and being able to talk with you openly. That's my only ask.
That sounds great. And I really like what you did at wherever we were a month ago, San Diego, where you sort of did, like, everyone did a quick intro in the contributor summit. I don't know whether we'll get that opportunity again, but that was actually really great, I thought.
Yeah, I think that's part of I think one of the reasons to highlight our SIG is that we have so many sub projects, and I think getting everybody to have their moment to talk to new contributors and to talk to other people about what's going on is super important.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for everyone that already stepped up. I guess I'll actually create another doc. The solution is always another doc. I will probably create another doc to collaborate more on this and break this out and reach out on Slack and reach out to the project leads for the sub-project.
I have not seen an email flow through yet. Usually what happens is Nancy sends out an email talking to the SIG leads, but I have not seen that go by yet. But I will make sure that I post to folks when I do receive notice of that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. I was going to double check my email. I don't know what, that's sort of surprising because normally it's done around this time. So probably Christmas or.
Yeah. Best time to send out an email.
Exactly.
So if you're interested, just put your name there and we'll try to coordinate with the different sub-projects and we can move on. Typically at this point in the call, we go through the status updates. I was kind of curious though about the current state of the /cluster directory. If there's any updates, I know DIMS is out right now, but if anyone has any insight of where we're at with some of the test automation for cluster API in particular. Bueller. All right, I guess I'll follow. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say I could probably give a brief overview of the current state of the conformance testing. Right now, at least the AWS job on master, and we have conformance job against the latest release branch. We've been keeping those pretty good. Andy has been staying on top of those that as we receive breakage, making sure that those get resolved pretty quickly. I can check on the GCP status as well. Looks like GCP needs a little bit of help as far as the master conformance tests, but the stable ones are currently running pretty well.
I'm working on it.
Is this using the tip of kubeadm off of master?
So we have at least one job for each that's doing that. For AWS, it runs against the release branch and runs against the tip of Kubernetes, both for kubeadm and Kubernetes proper.
Do folks feel comfortable or have thoughts about whether or not we should put this if we should start to swap things around for the release blocking jobs for release? This will put you in the eye of Sauron. It's both good and bad.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I worry about right now with it is that they are not necessarily overly reliable yet. You know, some of it's just normal test flakiness, but there's also aspects we've seen where, because we're building images and deploying cluster API and then running the tests, sometimes in those setup steps, we do encounter some issues still.
Okay. We can always, there's no need to flip the switch. We could make it informing and then make it blocking in the future. But I do think we should probably make it informing.
I believe at least some of the jobs are already listed under release informing, but I would need to double check the configuration to verify that.
GCP definitely is. I'm not sure about AWS, but yeah, it's informing.
But sorry, Tim, you are suggesting that we move from periodic to pull request jobs?
They don't need to be per pull request. The release blocking jobs are not all per pull request, similar periodics. But there's the release blocking signal basically would mean that if something were to fail, immediately the release team would be poking you with their eye poker stick to try and figure out what went wrong.
Okay, from Kubernetes we moved out from release blocking a few cycles ago, but we have a bunch of things into the release informing. And we are poked, near release, we are poked by the release team.
So my long-term goal would be that we kill /cluster directory with fire, because it's like woefully under-maintained and the SIG doesn't even really maintain it or own it. But we still kind of like limp along in perpetuity. So I think if as soon as we can get or feel comfortable to flip the switch to make cluster API release blocking, that's basically testing all a lot of componentry that the SIG actually owns and maintains, as well as the Kubernetes bits. I think that's a much more apropos use of testing cycles as well as the SIG's resources. That's right. Thanks for the readout. I think we'll probably try to reconvene maybe further along in the 118 cycle and see where folks are at, what they feel comfortable with. Next up is the sub-project readouts. Unless there's, before we get into that, because that always takes a while, are there topics that other folks want to discuss? Going once, twice, 3 times. Right. Sub-project readouts. Justin, because I know you're here, why don't we start with cups?
Yes, I think so. Last time I put an update in Absentia, we basically got our more or less caught up. In other words, we have a masters now targeting 118, which is nice. So we're sort of trying to land some bigger features, looking at things like add-ons and containerd and cluster API, all that good stuff. I don't know if we'll make it all in 3 months, but yeah, it's sort of in a reasonable place right now where we are like have a fairly large lead time for new features, but also now sort of working on stabilizing the existing many alpha and beta branches to get those actually released. But if you want to contribute something big to COPS, this is a great time to get involved. I see you looking, Tim.
Yes. Are there any other questions for Justin? Once, twice, 3 times. I'm guessing Fabrizio, want to give the Kubedium update?
Yes, sure. I didn't finish to write, but so the main point is that last week we did planning, and P0 for this cycle is to move Kubernetes out of 3. We are the first project doing this, so there are a lot of work to do, some question mark here and there. Lubomir created a a great document trying to define how to do this work. And this will be the most important job for this cycle. We are working also to a several set of P1 and P2 changes, but I will give more info as soon as details are defined. And the last thing is that tomorrow we canceled the office hour for tomorrow because people are starting to go to vacation. So the real work will start in January.
Would you like me to cancel it on the community calendar?
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure. I don't know if Lubomir already took care of this, but
He did not, so I can do that now.
okay.
Any questions for Fabrizio? While we have everyone else here, are there any other meetings that folks want me to cancel over the next coming weeks that are on the community or group calendar?
SCDADM, I think, is there's a meeting next Monday.
Okay.
Thanks.
And we've canceled the Minikube office hours as well.
We didn't hold component standard this morning and next week as well.
Next week, what time is component standard at?
It's Tuesday.
I don't have it on the calendar from the community calendar.
Oh, maybe Mike pulled it.
And I don't know if you have sig-AWS bizarrely on the 27th, or is that someone else's calendar?
That's not ours. We don't have that one.
Okay, yeah. I know it's not technically ours, but the calendar, I'm just, yes, okay. I'll find out who owns the calendar, but.
I do have COPS though this Friday. Are you planning to have COPS this Friday?
I think we'll have it. I think, yeah, might be a festive occasion.
How about cluster add-ons on Tuesday? Is that the one?
That's also canceled.
Great, so deleting.
There should be, I mean, I see the component standard meeting on Tuesday next week. So, but that's.
I think Mike may have done that separately outside of the sig-cluster-lifecycle has a calendar that's linked to the community calendar. The SIG lead should have access to it. If you don't, we should talk with Paris to make sure that you do. All right, so cluster API on Christmas, I'm guessing no, unless you're a Grinch.
Yeah, that's a no.
Also, I think the cluster API, the provider implementers office hours, one is on Christmas Eve, the other one is on New Year's Eve. I don't think I'll be able to host. I don't know if anybody else is going to want to step in, but those are.
Let's just say no.
Yeah.
All right. What about the week of New Year's? I don't know what folks are planning. There's a lot of meetings on the week of New Year's, so I just want to make sure that while we have everybody here, we're at least consistent. There's the AWS Cluster API AWS provider on Monday the 30th. Yes, no?
I don't see a point in having it. I know quite a few people are going to be out for that, so we might as well cancel it.
All right. I'm going to cancel our meeting on the 31st, sig-cluster-lifecycle. That's done. Office hours, Cluster API office hours on the 31st and 1st. Daniel, you said get rid of both of those?
Yeah, I think that would make sense. Thanks.
All right, so everything on the 1st. There's a lot of stuff on the 1st. I'm going to delete kubeADM office hours and Cluster API office hours on the 1st.
Thank you.
And image builder. I'm gonna have so much spam email, it's gonna be unbelievable. All right, and I'll leave everything else for Thursday and Friday. All right, now that my inbox has been full of internet spam, we can move on to the next one. Daniel at CDADM.
I'm going to start work on the API types. So we have a configuration file rather than flags, which is the interface now. There's been a recent uptick in PRs for small features, some of which have been flags, and then bug fixes. So I've been keeping on top of the reviews there. And last but not least, I want to shout out to Lubomir for decoupling etcdadm from Kubernetes. We had an issue with go-get, with Go modules, and he got to the bottom of that. And yeah, that was a great fix. And anyway, wanted to say thanks.
Any questions for Daniel? Let's test. Cluster API.
We're working towards V1 Alpha 3. We have been doing a lot of work on the control plane proposal. There is still one proposal out, which I think it has a timeout for tomorrow, and that's the node remediation. Machine pool is also coming along, and we have also been working on cluster cutoff v2. There is a lot of PRs for cluster cutoff v2, and apologize in advance if I didn't get them for the last 2 days, but I will today. And we're also updating all our dependencies, and the minimum required version for the management cluster will be Kubernetes 1.16, and we are planning to move to CRD v1 as well within this week. Oh, and one other thing is now Cluster API and Kappa have tilt-based development for really, really fast development locally. If you never tried it out, I would suggest to give it a spin. It's really great, and thanks Andy and Chuck for putting this together.
Do you have a developer guide for getting started? Do you have a getting started guide for developers?
Yeah, it actually comes with documentation.
Okay. Any other questions for Vince? Next up, I don't see Moshe here, but does anyone give an update about the image builder, where things are at?
So I don't think we've made too much progress in the past couple of weeks for the image builder. We've had a couple of fixes come in for the existing Packer and Ansible scripts. But other than that, I know that there's been work, there's work been done to actually get the documentation published similar to how we have for Cluster API with Netlify. So that has happened. And I know Moshe was looking at how do we enable automated builds, but I don't think there's been any progress made on that yet.
Okay. Any questions for Jason proxying to Moshe, I guess? One of the things I want to think about doing too is if some projects have a call to arms thing, maybe in our status updates, if there's certain work items that folks would like to get to but just don't have enough resources, if they want to highlight them here, I can probably try to take this back towards the broader community and say, for folks who are interested, here's this massive mountain of work that needs people to help out. I think my ask might be for some of those things would be to make sure that it's curated enough so we can hand it off to new to mid-level contributors. I wish TEDx automation was easy, but sadly, it's like a weird Rube Goldberg machine. Thomas, are you still around?
Yep, I'm here. So we really, for Minikube, we released 1.6 last week to coincide with the Kubernetes v1.17 release. We managed to get about a 40% speed improvement for new VM startup. We also have a handful of updated components and complaints addressed. So we did have some regressions though. File locking on Windows. We also broke offline support. These were signs of systemic issues when it comes to our integration testing. If you have integration tests, don't ignore the results if they're flaky. So after the holidays, we'll be merging a bunch of the things that we demoed at KubeCon, the multi-node, VM-free, and pause, as well as cleaning up our integration tests and hopefully forcing it so that people can't merge if the integration tests are failed, at least for our reliable ones. So that's all I got. Any questions?
All right. Next up, Lee, you got the last two, I think.
Great. Yeah, so in add-ons, as far as work that's hoping to be merged at some point, got some updates into the KEP, made some documentation proposals that are still work in progress for the kubeadm integration. The kubeadm PR now has an upgrade implementation. Whittling down the to-dos on that, it still needs a rebase for a component config refactor that Rusty merged into kubeadm. That's just some of the under the hood stuff. And then the kubeproxy and node local DNS add-ons are still a little bit work in progress. The core DNS add-on work has been inactive in terms of updates on our call, but that might just be due to the holidays. And that's add-ons. Does anyone else have anything to add or questions or comments? Cool. Moving on to component standard, I just wanted to do some call outs for a bunch of work that's been happening. We've been very active since KubeCon had a very successful KubeCon. Mike and I are just really glad to be working with new contributors and a few seasoned people who have shifted what they've been working on from groups like SIG testing to focus on component standard. Component config isn't the only thing that we do, but it is the primary effort currently. Obitech and Lala Tendum are rebooting Kube Controller Manager component config. There's been a lot of design discussion, and just they are championing pushing that through. So we really want to focus on getting an API that is somewhat usable, but really just focusing on producing something that people can use. And then if we need to change it, that's why we have component config. Can do stuff in a future version. But we really want to get to an alpha of that that people can use. We would like some work. This was mentioned on the kubeadm planning call for the component config UX in kubeadm. So this cycle, we have a new contributor, Shubaksha. She's looking at making some improvements for the kubelet component config here. And then that sparks a larger conversation. And then Mayank is working on the kubeproxy config. And lastly, Tashin actually picked up this huge kind of test harness thing for component config kind of conformance or convention testing that he got some tests merged for. And so we're really stoked about that. Congratulations to Tashin. But that was not a simple or trivial thing, and it's good for the ecosystem of configs to make sure that they're uniform. But yeah, any questions, comments, or additions? Cool, thanks.
Right. Are there any other last group topics before we call it? Going once, twice, 3 times. Great. Well, thanks everyone. We can call it a little bit early, and I hope everyone has a happy holidays, and we will see you sometime in the new year. If you're traveling, safe travels.
Take care. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Happy holidays.